but it's usually the last one.
Yeah. When you're talking.
Excuse me, guys, real quick, before you guys start the meeting, are you going to be, is there a date set for you guys to start filming the meetings so that they're available to the public? Say the public can't show up to the meeting or can't watch it live, but a few days if they're available to watch any of these subcommittee meetings or school committee meetings, is there something in progress for that to film and have available online?
I don't know as far as subcommittee, but I believe that they're going to be talking about that at school board for school committee.
Okay, so just the school committee meetings will hopefully be available online at a later date?
Moving in that direction, yep.
Okay.
Got to find a good platform.
Sure.
What are you doing every other fourth Monday?
Well, I'd like to not be having to come here and take the time out of my professional career to do this. So,
Well, but we have been.
but I can advise, for
We have
sure.
been playing around with it, that's for sure. We've had a couple of different methods and it's just not very good.
Well, I'm willing to advise if that helps.
Yeah, even the last town council meeting, the audio wasn't good. I was watching it.
I did
Yeah.
report it to them. They fixed, there was an issue, but they fixed it because I heard that.
So maybe I'll reach out to you folks in an email and we can,
I would love to see like another product of that because I watched the first one and it was, I thought the sound was, but the video was excellent. So
Of which one?
he did one,
Here?
well, I know you do them all, but September. I don't know, I saw one of the two.
yeah, just the setup really needs to be plugged into your audio back there and with a camera that can zoom in
Yeah.
or be wide. Because
Panorama.
yeah, the tablet last meeting, obviously, that can only see so much, and the audio. I don't
It
know
can't
how
collect
that
the
goes.
audio.
So I'll send an email
Yeah,
and maybe make some advice towards camera and setup, some type of platform that's working with other schools or,
Sure.
okay?
yeah. You can send it to me and Mr. Keith.
Okay,
That would be great.
I'll do that.
4 o'clock on the dot. All right. I'm assuming you can hear me good? Perfect. First policy. Maybe down just a little bit. I feel like I'm going to really punch today. Or I feel loud. Good feeling. Okay, thank you. It's the those P words always in policy. So the first policy I'd like to look at is IKF. This is a pretty minor change, but we're doing this because of a statute change. IKF, and it's on the second page, so page 2 of 4. What you have in front of you are, you've obviously had certain requirements listed, but then if you go down to the second asterisk, third asterisk, it says state assessment completion junior year. So the state changed that to sophomore year this year when they went to the NWEA test. And so what I would propose is that we reword this to just say required state assessment completion. And that way, if the state were to ever change back to junior year, go back to the SAT, we have that flexibility and we don't have to come back to policy and change it. So just a simple required state assessment completion.
Right, because sometimes they might change assessments as well,
It could
like
be
what they're
it
using
could
for
be a
assessment.
different assessment. I think it used to say SAT,
Right.
and then obviously that changed, and it went to Power for a while. So it just gives us the flexibility to not have to change it when the state potentially changes an assessment or an assessment year.
Do you need it to say before graduation? Does that need to be in there? But because this is referencing graduation, we don't need to add that.
Right. And sadly, it's oftentimes it's what we point to, because believe it or not, some high school students don't take the test seriously, or they decide not to come to school that particular day, and we often have to cite high school administration has to cite the policy like it is a graduation requirement, because we as a district get graded on the completion of that test, 95% or higher. So just changing that to state assessment required state assessment, completion, and then we'll just leave the year off of it. last month to be changed before obviously graduation this year. Any questions with that?
I was just curious about the alternative methods of earning credit. I was just double checking. Now we do have the alternative ed program. Does that match up with the same kind of credits as if you're in the building taking coursework? I just wanted to clarify to make sure. Because that's in the
I did ask Mr.
alternate.
Walsh to come today for this very reason, in case there were other questions.
So those, Kristen, those are not,
Somebody's yelling hallway.
those are not, so alternative ed credits are not alternative credits. Those are one of our employed instructors who is credentialed, who is teaching courses with units that are developed with the standards that we've accepted from the state. The alternative credits are offsite credits, our credit recovery, our dual enrollment, our multiple path, there's a whole stream of those alternative credits that we accept. The alternative ed, those credits are the same as the credit for English 9, for English 10, or whatever.
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. So we'll bring that to the next board meeting first.
Yep, that will be worded for November, I believe it's the 6th,
Or seven.
7th.
Yeah, 7.
All right. Number 2, second policy I would like to look at, I think we should look at BEDH first, and that public participation at school committee meetings. So included the sample again. As you know from our last meeting, and if it's already, I'll just kind of summarize based on the sample where we were at in respect to the last meeting. And the first reading obviously was voted down, sent back with the intent to make sure that this policy and BED align, which is the Hermon School Committee rules. There's a little bit on here regarding public participation. So when you look at BEDH, which is the public participation at board meetings sample policy, as we had it, we kept obviously the first paragraph minus, and obviously anywhere it says board, we changed to committee. So we kept the first paragraph, we kept the second paragraph in the sample policy, we kept the third paragraph, just put in Hermon schools obviously. We kept then we moved into the optional language section, and we did keep the public comment may also be invited just prior to committee discussion of individual agenda items. So we kept the first 3 paragraphs, we kept the optional language. If you then flip over, we have the language of members of the policy may address the committee within the guidelines. And then from our old policy, we incorporated, so right above the following guidelines on the sample policy, we included our number 1, which was the piece about written correspondence. So if you go to, I apologize for that, kind of flipping back and forth here.
I know, Trav.
Yeah. So if you go to our BEDH, our number 1 is written correspondence may be directed to the school committee through the superintendent chairperson for consideration. We inserted that just above the following guidelines shall apply. So if you look at the sample policy, we inserted our number 1 essentially at the top of page 2.
Right.
So people can still write that, write a written correspondence to be read at a meeting. We then, in this subcommittee meeting, submitted the following guidelines shall apply to public participation. We submitted A, We submitted B, and I'm going down through the sample policy. We submitted C, we submitted D, we submitted E. However, we did change speaker to member of the public. Sorry, members of the public. And we subsequently did that in F as well. All members of the public. We also submitted G at the bottom of page 2 on that sample policy. We submitted H. We submitted I. We submitted J, K, and L. And what I would propose in looking at PED, I'm going to say, or I'm going to propose that we also submit from our rules, number 4 on page 3 from PED, which is, it's the one about the applause, clapping, expressing approval, disapproval, etc. I think it makes a lot of sense to put it there. So if you look at our rules, we have a section 18, we have four numbers there, and submitting that 4 as, that would be M, LM. And that would read, persons present at school committee meetings are requested not to applaud or otherwise express approval or disapproval of any statements made or actions taken at such meeting.
So what was it going to be? We were going to, I'm sorry.
We were going to take L. What was going to be our L?
So L would be in the event of emergency.
Okay.
Yeah. And certainly you could move this part into, I mean, you could make it any letter, right? Just from a standpoint of
Just
giving,
follow along.
right, following along, Jody, for Jody to put notes on and stuff. I think it could just be M.
For number 4.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. So it would be M.
Right.
Yep. Applause. I just call it the applause clause, but it would obviously read, persons present at school committee, da, 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 da. Yep.
Or we could change it to match our language of members of the public.
Yep, we could do that too. Yep. I think we just want to make sure that I would keep that present. So it's obviously not just the person speaking, so.
Right, everyone.
Yeah. Members of the public present. And then read. So 4, so it's going to be M. Okay. Then, we took, going back to our BEDH, so our policy. We took our number 3, which is on the very last page. It's a citizen who wishes to have an item placed on the agenda. We took that clause for that number, and we put it right after L, in this case M, and we call that number 2. And that one simply is a citizen. We obviously changed that to a member of the public who wishes to have an item placed on the agenda will present the request in writing to the superintendent. To be considered, the request must be made. We talked quite a bit about that time frame. We submitted 7 calendar days preceding the meeting,
Right.
and then we would let that person know whether or not that was going to be considered. So we did shrink the days, and we just did 7 calendar days preceding the meeting. And that became number 2 on the submitted, or what we submitted for consideration.
For BED 2 or BEDH 2?
BEDH 2. It's our 3, but we obviously made it 2 here. Going in order.
I know, I was
We already have
thinking though
one.
that we did that last time, like we had already written that in, like, that was what was discussed during the meeting.
Yep, so we eliminated all the 2 in our policy, and we just rolled it over and went right to number 3. We're just trying to stay in line with, we have a 1, we have all of 1, we have 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1H, all the way
Right.
down through M.
Mhm.
Now we have the 2. We did not carry over from our current policy 4 or 5. That was not carried over. And then in the sample policy, an agenda, the second to last paragraph at the bottom of page 3 in the sample policy, BEDH. We have an agenda shall be published in advance. We listed the locations. I would obviously suggest we continue to obviously keep that. So we would have all the locations, superintendent's office, school, town office, or town hall, whatever the terminology is, library, public facilities, website, etc. And then we had struck through opportunity for public participation. So this was a point of discussion in the school committee meeting. So the idea of submitting language for public participation at subcommittee meetings.
Mhm.
So you have opportunity for public participation at board subcommittee meetings is not required, but may be permitted in accordance with the board's policy and or rules pertaining to the operations of the subcommittee, or they recommend right to either or may be permitted at the discretion of the subcommittee chair.
Yeah, I think it's worth having it as a certain time in the agenda versus having it happen haphazardly throughout.
Sure. So I think what makes, at least what we're currently doing for a practice is maybe permitted at the discretion of the subcommittee chair. And that would allow you to publish an agenda that has public comment at the beginning,
Mhm.
and that people can speak to a policy.
Yeah,
So
because
we
they
would-
know what the agenda will be covered, so they will have that opportunity to review prior.
Yeah, so I think your agenda is obviously what drives your meeting. So I don't think you have to be so specific that you say will be listed at the beginning on the agenda. I think you just have maybe, and then on the agenda you put public comment, and then you have your number 2 or number 3, right? The policies you're going to be covering, number 4, policies for next time, number 5, other. And then the subcommittee, depending on how many policies, can decide, we're going to have 10 minutes. No, we have nobody to speak. Okay, let's go. And so on and so forth.
I think, I don't know if it has to be in the policy, but I think those people that attend here for subcommittee meetings, some of it might be, in my mind, as a visual person, to have something in writing too, like if somebody is sharing a thought, but also to present that in writing, or even ideas or bullet points or something, I just think is helpful.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
to have it in writing.
To have whatever. Right?
So like a public comment, so like sometimes people in public comment in the regular school committee have also written something and then handed it out even after they've reviewed it. I think as a subcommittee member, it would be helpful to me to have, I mean, I can take notes too, but I might misinterpret something if it's written in a different way from their perspective of what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think you would, if somebody.
I don't require it, but I guess we could encourage it if people are, if they're, I mean, it's pretty well known that those people who are coming to subcommittees are the regulars. We haven't had a lot of new people show up,
Like
so.
church on Sunday night, the regulars.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that, just like in a school committee meeting, I would never, if somebody read something and then say, would you consider this, and handed it to you.
Right.
Now, certainly, I think, so here's the thing that I would just say about that, is that we obviously, like, we are trying to publish agendas in advance so that people have time. So I think that it's important that people understand that digestion and action on something handed to you 2 minutes before you're about to discuss it that's not, right, that's not like the be-all, end-all. And so, yeah, just encouraging people, if they have concerns or they have thoughts, great to say it, but if you want to put something in writing, you should submit it prior to.
Yeah, you could, but we also have this as our first reading and second reading,
Yes.
so at least
Yeah.
it's thought
Oh,
to
right.
then be
Oh, yeah, I see
discussed.
what you're saying.
Yeah, here, so
Yeah.
we don't, it's just really kind of like reminder and to bring it up when we have the first reading.
Right, I mean, we're dealing with two that have already been sent back twice. So,
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I see what you're saying.
It might cut back on it.
Gotcha. Yep, no, that makes sense. So if somebody wanted to submit something, yeah, absolutely, we can review it at that time. So I think the language there would be opportunity for public participation at board subcommittee meetings may be permitted at the discretion of the subcommittee chair. Now, we don't have chairs in our meetings, so I think again, it's just the chair, the school committee chair can appoint the chair. We don't have that right now. I think it's more important to put it on the agenda and just, we're going to recognize, and if it became an issue of order and control, I would just ask Mr. Keith to appoint one of the chair. But
Yeah, I think our school committee is a lot smaller than others, so their subcommittees are larger. I mean, we're 2 people in every single one, so
yeah,
it can be to both of us.
Right.
You'd be coaching.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So opportunity for public participation at board, subcommittee, no, committee.
So
It's gonna sound weird.
meetings.
At committee, subcommittee meetings. May be permitted at the discretion of the subcommittee chair. All right. So those would be essentially there's really only 2 things that would change from our first iteration, and that would be the adding applause clause, and then obviously editing that last line extra. So we'll reference this one more time when we get over to rules.
Right.
So just kind of keep that, because you'll see what I want to do with that applause clause. Well, you saw it here, but I'll tell you what I was thinking of that. So if we go to BED, Hermon School Committee Rules. So in doing a review of this, obviously this was edited in October of 20, and I don't know how much, I hadn't talked to Mr. Chassie in respect to, right, like what, these would have been remote, I believe these would have been remote meetings still on October of 20, maybe, I don't even, I
Yes.
shouldn't say that.
Like, well,
I know we weren't,
I think some of us were, those that were able to attend, attended the meetings, but those that were not able to participate in virtual. If they couldn't.
in October, yeah.
Yes.
so I discussed this with our attorney, and when we reviewed this, our primary concern in trying to get this aligned, we have one major concern, and that's in section 5. So the first part is, just look at a date first, or a day of the week. So you have a Saturday there, the agenda shall be emailed, mailed, and delivered so that all school committee members may receive it by Saturday. So it's really not the way technology works nowadays.
Yeah.
I like, it's not, Saturday's not a business day, so to me, the fact that you have a non-business day, and that's what you said, you have a non-business day in which you have things to deliver by for a business meeting, or for, sorry, not for a business meeting, but for a school committee meeting on Monday, it really should say Friday. Obviously, our goal is Thursday, and those usually go out by 4 o'clock on Thursday. So changing that to Friday, I think that would be my first recommendation. And then, when you look at Robert's rules, there really shouldn't be anything that's unanimous by vote. So for example, you have 3 unanimous votes listed in that section. You have it at the first paragraph, sorry, in the second sentence you have for a 90-day period. So basically, right, if you have, as determined by the chair for reconsideration, if that item has once been reconsidered for a period of 90 days after any such vote to reconsider except by unanimous vote. So you have it listed there. You then have unanimous vote under items may be added to the agenda at any regular meeting by unanimous vote. Then you have it again under the superintendent may request agenda adjustments at the start of the meeting. The adjustments will be made by unanimous approval. And that should be by majority, not unanimous. There are 3 times. 3 times that you have that. And you do have a majority on table. Oh, you have it again. Sorry, you have it 4 times. Unanimous consent under as they appear on the agenda. And so basically the chair needs to have the ability to adjust the agenda, make corrections to the agenda. That is our obligation, and we can't have that. You can't have singular or minority blocking that from happening.
All right, well, we're not voting on it when it's created initially, so, like, it's created, it's sent to us, and so we should, I agree with you, I'm just saying, like, it's not like we have a say on, I mean, we might ask to add some things, but it's not like, I think it's reasonable to be able to go with majority.
Or make corrections.
Yes, or make corrections.
Or add a item, or there's just a variety of things that need to be done that are lawful, and therefore to be, I don't want to even use the term, but you can't have something impede that via unanimous. That doesn't follow Robert's rules. Robert's rules is majority. So it makes sense that those would change to majority. And we have the same issue in this on the next page as well. So my recommendation would be change Saturday to Friday, and then anywhere you see unanimous, you would change to majority vote.
What about the first sentence in section 5 where it says the agenda shall be prepared by the superintendent of schools and shall contain items, what about in conjunction with the chair? I mean, it is something that you have in practice right now.
Yes, he's the one that sets the agenda. I just prepare it. Like I'm the secretary. I'm the one that writes it.
Are you saying that you think that the chair should be referenced in that?
Yeah, I was thinking
In that first,
Oh, okay.
because you communicate with,
Oh,
yeah.
you
I
pull
think-
the items together,
Right.
and then you communicate with the chair, and then he sets the agenda. Because if someone comes to you and says, I'd like to see something on the agenda, and they mention it to you, then you're going to mention it to the chair.
Yes, it has to be approved by the chair.
Right, so referencing the chair in that first line as
So it
well.
could be prepared by the superintendent and approved by the chair. I don't know.
Yeah, so it should say the agenda shall be prepared, right, by the superintendent of schools and shall contain items submitted by the superintendent, which that's what we do, right? The school committee can submit items, superintendent can submit items. It should say as approved by the chair.
So maybe the agenda shall be prepared by the superintendent of schools and shall contain items submitted by the superintendent, members of the school committee, and approved with final approval of the chair.
I think I would say as approved by the chair.
Yeah, sure. But I think that we, as members of the committee, also are part of that
Right. so-
initial part for approval.
Correct, because you're
Submitting items.
submitting
Right.
items to then ultimately be considered for the actual
As
agenda.
approved.
Yeah, just like I do. Yep.
I'm a little bit confused about the second sentence after that, so let's look at that. Plus, I don't like starting sentences with the word any, but
Any items which have been voted upon by the school committee shall not be placed on the agenda in the same form or containing substantially the same content and or request as determined by the chair. Ooh, there you have it.
it's a run-on sentence for something.
If the item has been reconsidered for a period of 90 days. And after any such vote to reconsider except by unanimous vote. So again, if you voted you voted to approve an SRO, that does not come back, that can't come back as an agenda item for 90 days because it was something you took action on, unless by unanimous, which again, if 4 of the committee members want to review that, they should be able to, right, majority. But basically what it's doing is we're not going to bring out and rehash one item positively or negatively voted on,
For 90 days.
right, for 90 days.
So there's a way to streamline that and eliminate some of these words and say the same thing.
Exactly. And also, we could start it with agenda items, which have been voted upon by the school
Yeah.
committee, shall not be replaced, should not be,
Placed on the agenda again
Or-
for 90 days.
Right, they can't be any items, they have to be agenda items. Right.
yeah, we can skip all that blah, blah, blah in between, in the same
Right.
format, blah, blah.
So agenda items, okay, so agenda items,
I'm taking notes too, because I helped you with that,
Yes.
don't worry. Agenda items.
yeah, I'm just trying to, okay, so agenda items which have been voted upon by the school committee shall not be placed on the agenda.
Again, for 90 days.
Yeah, I understand what they're trying to do, like in the same form or containing substantially the same content. I'm sure at some point, somebody tried to tweak the content just enough to get it back on.
Right.
But to me, like, I don't even know how you do that for many of our items.
If pertaining to the same subject matter or something, you know, wording it that way so that you're incorporating it so it can't be renamed to be brought back up.
So, items which have been voted upon by the school committee shall not be placed on the agenda. I don't think we honestly need in the same form or containing substantially the same content and or request as determined by the chair for
Yeah, that's the
consideration.
same, I agree. It's,
And it's just so clunky.
Right.
so agenda item for a period of 90 days
Yeah,
after
I
any
think,
such vote to consider.
yeah, I think you're right, you get rid of from in after the comma,
Yeah,
all the way down to reconsider. And you just say for a period of 90 days,
after.
such vote to reconsider, except by majority vote.
That works. Just take those extra words right out of there.
Which I'm not sure how you get the majority vote if it can't be an agenda item, but that's,
So should it be for a period of 90 days after any such vote was considered? Because it's not to reconsider. Doesn't that seem like a double?
yeah, it would be reconsidered, it was considered at
Right.
the time.
So
Yeah, I think,
for a period of 90 days after such vote was considered.
yeah, it was considered. I think that's a mistake. That should be, after any such vote was considered, or was taken.
Vote was taken, yeah. Except by, but is there a need for except by majority vote there? Because we are basically saying you just can't do it.
Correct.
Well, and that's my concern. How do you, as I'm thinking about this, we have an item, it goes on the agenda, it's voted on. Somebody requests, superintendent, school committee member, requests that it be put back on. Sorry, you can't, 90 days. But then you come back to the board and say, well, by majority, we can put it back on. But it's not an item that you can actually act and vote on anyways.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, the school committee has these rules, but the school committee is the one that enforces the rules, right? So if there were an emergency situation where we were like, oh my word, we made the wrong decision or legally something changed, we would just consult.
Yeah, kind of like the nursing thing with the RN versus LPN. I mean, that didn't go exactly that way, but what if it did, like,
We're gonna hire an RN, no, we're gonna hire an LPN, no, we're gonna hire an RN, and we, right. So we can certainly seek the legal, like, how do we go about this so that we're not, but ultimately, I just feel like this is here to eliminate redundancy and bringing up the same items.
Yep.
You know, just to get our business done. So we're gonna stretch all the way down, straight through, all the way down, unanimous vote. And we're just gonna say, any agenda items which have been voted upon by the school committee shall not be placed on the agenda for a period of 90 days after any such vote was taken, not considered taken. Vote was taken. And I will obviously have Mrs. White send this to you in case I made a mistake on my notes.
When is you and the chair need to go over the agenda? This says for items to be submitted the Wednesday before the meeting. Is that timely for you to go over the agenda? You know, if one of us or if somebody wanted
Sure.
an item considered for the agenda,
Yeah.
is Wednesday timely enough for you to get together with the chair?
Or should we just do
Just
7
set the
calendar
agenda.
days for everything?
So it's not always timely.
Right.
We don't have a set, we always look to Wednesday and turn the agenda around. Oftentimes, it's not enough time.
Okay.
We usually are meeting Monday, discussing for Thursday. Finalizing for Thursday. So Wednesday would be very, very tight, and it would probably involve a phone call saying, hey, this was brought up by a committee member. Well, usually he knows about it, right? It's usually the committee.
Right, we
requesting,
tell
hey,
him, yeah.
But certainly for the public, this wouldn't apply, right? This is for the school committee.
Mhm.
So you can put this to 7 calendar days, or you could put it to the, the Monday before. Wednesday would be, it could be a potentially tight turnaround because a lot of times, remember, my job is to go get information concerning that agenda item,
Right.
especially if it's an actionable item. You know, can we look at this? Can we see how much this costs? Can we, right? Student ratio, right? It could be a number of things that data would be required. Wednesday would be tight. Especially to have that item that you are voting on with all the information.
So that doesn't, if we moved that ahead so that there was more time allotted for you to gather information, that type of thing, and not, I mean, it's certainly you can firm it up on Wednesday, you can still be finalizing it on Wednesday, but to have the bulk of the information submitted to you ahead of time regarding an agenda item or question, what is a better time frame?
7 calendar days.
yeah, I think it's reasonable.
I mean, you're talking about 4 weeks, give or take, between every committee meeting.
Right.
In the fall, budget season changes a little bit. So that gives people 2 to 3 weeks to think about items and request them to be put on the agenda.
And time for you to pull information together before you have a meeting
Yeah.
with the chair to look at the
Yes.
information.
Yeah. So we would write that to say all items shall be submitted 7 calendar days.
Mhm.
So for most, that would be Monday.
Right.
The Monday before. You obviously have, you move into section 7 and 8, kind of gets into the logistics and the the decorum of voting and counting votes, calling for votes, no concerns. Like I said, in reviewing this, my only other primary concern on this page just gets into section 17, where when you start talking about the rules, so these rules, so section 17, the rules shall not be dispensed with or suspended unless, and they do 3 here, and that's obviously not a majority. So I think it should be a majority if you start talking about your rules. So similar to the page before, changing 3 to majority.
Can you explain number 15 to me?
A motion for referral to a committee or administrative official until it is decided shall preclude all amendments of the main question.
I'm going to go with that 15 too. I'm not going to call prior second motion shall be reduced to writing if the chairperson shall so direct.
So I'll be honest, I really don't know what that means.
I know, I wonder what happened that made
I don't know how, I don't know what referral would mean in that situation.
Right, that's fine.
So would that mean if there was an agenda item, just putting it out there possibly, if it was an agenda item and it was something that needed to be referred to the policy committee, the finance committee, that type of thing, that,
So maybe you should say subcommittee. Which is,
Well,
it says committee, so it's confusing.
right, so subcommittee, but that preclude all amendments of the main question. No, that, until it is decided, motion for decided shall preclude all amendments of the main question. So does that mean if there was an agenda item and the chair determined that, or it was determined by the board, that it should go to a subcommittee to be reviewed, that the expectation would be for that subcommittee to review just that specific question without adding anything extra onto it? By the way, if you're going to look into that, this also could go with it, looking at just that specific item. And then after it's been reviewed and it comes back like the policies
First and
do,
second reading.
first and second reading, or whatever the response is after the committee has looked at it. So I think
It's
what
just
it
poorly
means-
written.
Right. I think that what it means is if there's something that needs to go to committee, the exact item that is submitted should be.
Because it says preclude, which means before any amendments are made, it needs
Right.
to go through the process of subcommittee.
Correct. Before the
Review.
board looks at the what ifs or what might be the answer, you're looking at exactly what was asked first.
But it's not typically a motion. Yeah, that's just like it's usually it happens prior. It just seems weird how to
A
start.
motion kind of sets it in a different format, I think.
I think what is helpful in our committee meetings is that there is a first and a second reading. And so a lot of times it's not a motion for referral, it's, we'll vote this through, first reading. But would you please look into this, would you look at that? And a lot of times that's directed to the administrative official, sometimes Mr. Walsh or Mrs. Davis or whoever it might be. I was thinking about, in that situation, I've been looking into a Narcan policy, and if I would have brought that to you, and then somebody said, what does Sheriff Wharton think? Are there any legal ramifications? But then a literal motion, I make a motion that you refer this to Penobscot law enforcement, but we have to submit just what we had, not any of the amendments that we made to it.
That makes sense.
So, but again, we have those first readings.
Yeah.
And so like even in the last meeting, I would rather than getting into tabling something and getting into vote it down, send it back to subcommittee, we'll take it back up, and just bring another reading to
And
it.
that's why there's a first reading and a second reading. The first reading is you're accepting that it has been looked at,
Right.
but questions, these
And
are
our initial
information.
thoughts.
These are our initial thoughts, it's perfect. And then, that's why it goes back for a second reading to look at those thoughts
And add
and
to
bring
it.
it back to it. Or
I've never actually seen a motion for referral, but I've seen a lot of referrals from our committee meetings. Have you looked at it? Can we look at it? Can we check this out? Just so we're comfortable with all the information, or make sure we have all the information.
Right.
Right, so similar to with the LPN and RN thing, I just asked for clarification on something, and then you brought it back, but I didn't make a motion to do that.
Exactly. Because we don't have to, because we have a first and second reading. But sometimes school districts will, at a time where they feel comfortable, like they're going to push something through
And wait.
in first, right, waive the first reading, go into the second reading, and this would be a way to protect yourself in that situation, so that you can make a motion for referral instead of doing a first and a second.
But even to waive the first reading is done by a majority vote.
Yeah.
So do we need to clean this up a little bit, or just add like subcommittee instead of committee?
I think committee is okay.
You do?
Yeah. We could certainly add subcommittee, because that's all we have,
Right, I mean, it just,
just so that it's not
Not
implied that it's to the school committee.
right,
Right, it's not like it's
Yes.
a school
A
committee.
motion for referral to a subcommittee.
or administrative official.
I think it's fine to add a subcommittee, just adjust that.
What I'll do is I'll just make sure that that's what that actually means.
Yeah.
Because I also think about committees at like state levels, and so I just want to make sure that committee was intended to mean subcommittee here.
Right, within our district.
Within our district, not in some other committee.
Right.
It makes sense that it would be a subcommittee, but I'll just, you want to make a motion? No, you can't. I'll just make sure that that is indeed meant to be subcommittees, and if it is, subcommittee. Section 18. This is where we're looking at the alignment, and this would be specific to, so it said keep your BEDH out. This is where we would get into some of that alignment, or making sure we're aligned. So currently, under BEDH, sample policy, BEDH, which we would propose to become our policy, we have left in public comment may also be invited just prior to committee discussion of individual agenda items. You currently, and this is what Mr. Keith was attempted to start discussing in the last committee meeting, was we have a policy, or excuse me, you have rules in policy that says any person wishing to address the school committee will be given an opportunity to do so in accordance with the following procedure. Persons wishing, number one, persons wishing to address the school committee on an item which appears on the agenda shall wait until the chairperson announces the consideration of such item, at which time they may address the school committee on that particular item. Number two, persons wishing to address the school committee on an item not appearing on the agenda shall do so only under new business. And number 3, any person wishing to address the school committee shall signify his desire by raising his hand, his or her hand, and waiting to be recognized by the chairperson. The chairperson may request the person to identify himself, him or herself. So what I would propose is that you essentially scratch all of that and you put in the language, public comment may also be invited just prior to committee discussion of individual items requiring board action. So that becomes your section 18.
From BED.
Yes. So the same, yep, the same language that allows for public comment. And obviously, where we place it on the agenda, this language, which allows for public comment to be invited prior to the discussion of agenda items requiring action, would be the opportunity where people could, members of the public, could also speak to a specific agenda item that they have a thought, a concern, a passion, idea on. So essentially what it would look like is, if I was sitting in Mr. Keith's chair as the chair, I would say, we are going to consider new item SRO. I'm just going to go back to SRO officer because that's the easiest one. I'm now opening it up to anybody that would like to speak to the SRO officer. And that way we don't, the hands thing, the raising the hand, right, that was all well and good in the library, in the JRTC room. That just doesn't work. It's small, it's informal, and so it would be people could go up, stand at the podium, and speak to yeas and nays on why they would want or not want an SRO officer. And then what that would allow people to do again is it gives the committee the control in that they can decide what items they would want to hear the public on, and it would also give the public another opportunity outside of public comment to speak to specific items, so they're not using their time, they're not confined to just, you got to get everything out in these 3 minutes if you also have a concern about something else later on in the agenda. So section 18 would read, let's just say it one more time. Public comment may also be invited just prior to committee discussion of individual agenda items requiring board action.
Yeah.
And then what I would additionally recommend is having a second sentence that said, the rules that apply to public comment apply to public comment. And that way, this chair can look at the time, no derogatory statements, right? All the A's, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You wouldn't have to list those. You could just say the same rules apply here, apply here. And that way, those two documents mirror and talk to each other and go hand in hand.
And then it has the flexibility to not only be for
New
new
agenda
business.
items. Yep, yep. But it also, we are not going to hear public comment on employment people. You can't have somebody stand up and talk to somebody who's being employed. So it allows the chair the flexibility to, we want to hear on the SRO. We are not going to take comment on hiring. We want to hear on, right, fill in the blank. I'm just going to stay away from trying to think. SRO, employment, two good examples of public comment specific to an item, when we would not have public comment specific to an item. I haven't quite figured out the ideal wording for referring to the rules. So I thought a little bit about, for example, all the rules as laid out in EEDH apply here, all the rules under public comment, and actually like listing out the policy and then referring to the policy, perhaps a parentheses of A through M. I'm trying to think of the best way, So any thoughts that you have on, like, kind of the best way to say the same rules that apply to our public participation of public comment would also apply when you're speaking to one of these agenda items. Like the speaker can ask you to identify yourself, can limit the amount of time, can limit duplication of an item, just all that stuff that comes up during public comment.
Is that something that can be added when the chair reads that before public comments? You know, the procedure process for folks making public comment. Is there a way to add to that it refers to public comments throughout the agenda?
At the beginning, I would read the same statement or an iteration of that statement. Just a reminder, we're going to entertain public comment to this agenda item. Please don't disparage remarks. Please don't reference people by name. Please don't. And we're going to limit comments to 2 minutes on this item. Or something like that.
Right. I think I was just thinking of where that is presented at the beginning of the meeting, would it need to be reiterated every time that public comment is, the opportunity for public comment is offered? Would the chair need to restate that every time, or just if it's stated at the beginning of the meeting, because public comments have a spot on the agenda? So once it's stated, if you included in that this pertains to any opportunity for public comments throughout the meeting or this agenda or whatever you use to refer to that. I don't know if that's possible, rather than having to restate it every time, because the same folks that are here, that, you know, whether they want to speak to the beginning or they want to speak specifically to another item, it's still the same verbiage.
Yeah. I think that it would be nice for all of us if we could do it all at the beginning, and then obviously people get the opportunity to speak if they would like. Yeah. I thought about listing, A, B, C, D, E, all the way through. And I just feel like, again, just from a redundancy standpoint, it makes sense to say the same rules that apply under public participation, B, E, D, H, apply to B, E, D. And then these comments would be for both.
Yeah, I think that you can say per policy BEDH sections.
Yeah, right reference to section. It is 4:56 and a half. I know you have a hard stop at 5, so any other thoughts or questions?
One of the things I was thinking about, and it's just, I can't remember which section it is, but the part where we talk about where the agenda is posted and do we want to add social media to that or not?
For publishing where the agenda is posted?
Or like you put it on that the subcommittee was meeting today, like on social media. I just don't know if we want to add that in the language of it's on the website or in social media in 2022. I think it's appropriate that you are referencing that, like where it's happening and the time on there, but then the policies are to be found on the website, I think is.
Yeah,
So we're not gonna like put that. It's hard to post things like that on there. It's easier to just reference where that it can be found, but I was trying to remember where that too.
Yes, we have under BEDH, we would have the agenda where the website, the website where the agenda is available. Superintendent's office, and then all the other literal locations.
Oh, it does say the website on it.
Yeah, it says website, but I didn't know if we wanted to add social media.
I think announcing a
Right.
meeting versus adding an agenda. Because that's really the more important piece, is by law, right? You've got to have an agenda that goes with that announcement of the location. So to me, adding the agenda versus just saying, yeah, Facebook, we have a school committee meeting on November 6th.
I just think it's like antiquated to say we're gonna put it in the library. I mean,
Yep, what we're supposed to.
I know. Well, we can change it, that's weird.
We can, but by law, you know, we are supposed to put these out to these public,
Yeah,
as
So that
many
if
public.
somebody comes in, they
Yeah.
can see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they may not be looking for it, but if they see it posted.
The world is not that way anymore, but we are supposed to do that. I get RSU 87's agendas, like, thank you. And I'm sure that's in your policy, but I just call Mark. But I get them sent to me, you know, because I'm one of the people that, just like RSU 87 is on ours.
Oh,
Yeah, we send the agendas to them.
right.
Cheryl sends them to me every third Thursday,
Mhm.
or not Thursday, but
right.
anything else?
Excuse me, I'm kind of surprised you guys aren't asking Mr. Grant why he wants to limit the parental or community member comments during a regular committee meeting.
Because he didn't say that.
He wants to limit it to the chair saying, for this agenda item only. Where right now it's written.
Mr. Haggerty, we're,
I think in public comment and in whatever agenda items we have going that we want to hear public comment, we will offer that. I don't
It's a statement that assumes.
see the reason, see the difference.
What's that? Didn't hear you.
I think that it's important for us to remember that we are trying to provide people the opportunity to speak, but it should be at the discretion of the chair. And I don't have any problem, I don't know why that would be questioned, but we're not taking public comment at this meeting, so. I don't understand that, but I think we, as a subcommittee, have made it pretty clear that we want to welcome public comment.
Yeah, I think that the way that we just are proposing the first draft has opened up for public comment. I think that we are offering multiple times for that to happen in subcommittee and in committee meeting.
Yeah, I don't know why that.
So we'll
would be.
bring it to the committee and have a discussion.
Well, right now it says,
We have to decide on another date.
November.
Yeah.
I thought there was public comment around.
November.
We don't have it on the agenda today, Mike. And I have to get it to my son's mailer.
November, does Tuesday work? For pretty much
I
everybody?
think Tuesdays. I like Tuesdays. Yeah.
So our November meeting is the 7th, so then,
What would the 15th of November look like to anyone?
Just 1 second. So that could be challenging for me.
Okay.
and the following week, I know there's no school, but, I mean, you guys are you guys still working Mondays and Tuesdays?
Yeah, we have parent-teacher conferences in a couple of the buildings, Monday, Tuesdays in service.
Would Monday the 14th work? I mean, Tuesdays work well, but
Yeah. Would,
I feel like it's so
would
close.
the 29th work?
Yeah,
We don't have a school committee meeting until the 12th
Right,
of
yes.
December.
yes. November 29th
Yeah.
is
So we
4
can come back
o'clock
on
still.
break.
Yeah.
Is 4 o'clock still a good time?
Yep. Wide open that day.
November 29th at 4?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.